Welcome everyone to this week's IPLD sync meeting. It's August 12th, 2019, and it's the weekly dev meeting for the IPLD team. And today we plan to go over the specs repo and go over the stuff. Should we start with this and then see if we have in the end time for other things, or should we first do other things?
Why don't we do a quick update and then the other stuff?
Okay.
And I think this meeting can go long as well. I sent you a message to see if we could push that one tomorrow to make some room. So yeah, we can just go a little later if we need to.
Okay.
Cool.
Where do I have the cryptpad open? Yeah. All right. So yeah, I just start with myself. So this week, past week, I did most of my time I spent on JS IPFS stuff because yeah, I tried to integrate IPLD, the new IPLD version, with their stuff, and there's a few problems with async await stuff, but yeah, you can find the details on issues and so on. So yeah, that's my quick update. I didn't do much else because there was also a public holiday last week. So, oh, and for next week, there's another public holiday on Thursday, just to keep this in mind. Okay, and that's all from me. Next one is Eric.
I think everything I did was boring in a good way. Most of Hannah's branches about selectors are merged to master now, and they just, as far as I know, work. So that's kind of awesome. I ended up continuing to go deep on a performance rabbit hole this week that was kind of spurred by last week. And I tried to fix a small comment in one line of one piece of documentation, and trying to figure out what was really going on there took me several days. And so I wrote a really long book about performance, and hopefully this is going to be useful information in the future. So if anybody else writing Go wants to learn about how the GC feels about things, there's a link for you. And a bunch of naming refactors have landed. So Rod, you might have to apply sed to any work in progress you've got, but it should be easy. It's just textual naming change. That's about it.
Thanks. Next one on my list. I have too many windows open. Great. Is Rod.
Okay. So more Go learning. Focused on getting my test fixture archive format thing working. So I've got my JavaScript and Go versions are done and published, and yeah, you can pack in all sorts of arbitrary blocks into a single file and store them as test fixtures, which is really nice. So confirm that it's working, the same data on both. I was fixing a serialization bug I found in DAGPB along the way. So that's pull request 156. Volker and I are having a conversation in there. That's JS DAGPB, that is. And some minor adventures in some browser testing stuff that I won't bore you with because it's tedious and horrible. That's it.
All right. Michael, do you have any update to share?
Yeah, a bunch. So most of last week was done sort of organizing things and putting a bunch of stuff together for a couple different meetings. One was this Unix FS meeting that we did. So there's now a document. It's been published in an issue now that lists like every feature that we've talked about for Unix SV2 and all the links that I could find to prior discussions and stuff like that. And then we've separated that into a couple buckets of work items. One is an update to Unix SV1. So I have an issue open right now for discussion that will turn into a PR to the Unix SV1 spec to add metadata. And then I'll be taking the sort of implementable today set of things in Unix SV2 and turning that into an IPLD schema. And that will be another sort of spec rev on Unix SV2. And then also expect this quarter, I'll write a bunch of JavaScript code to turn that schema into a usable API for Unix SC2 as well. Other than that, we had the first project advisory committee meeting today. So I updated sort of a bunch of different stakeholders on all the stuff that we're working on the current status of both the research projects and a lot of the projects that people depend on. Got a lot of feedback that will be really helpful for future meetings, including for all of y'all, when you have sort of broad questions or stuff that you are struggling with, if you can surface those to me, I can actually work them into questions and things that group can discuss, and then we can also get feedback from them. And as that grows to include external stakeholders, that'll be, I think, even more interesting, because a lot of what we work on doesn't get enough input from different stakeholders with different positions. So
just a quick question, like what kind of questions? So it was pretty general, like what kind of questions would they expect that we ask if we have questions?
So it's more like, what are we struggling with right now? And then they may have input or advice on that, right? So some of the stuff that I surfaced was just, we are constantly struggling with how to best message things and finding the right language to describe things and even align within each other. I talked a bit about some of the stuff that Rod has been doing to sort of figure out like what are the how to quantify the different sort of performance cases in these multi-block data structures, and then what levers we can pull to manipulate them. And because I know that some of the people in that call have thought about that for a while as well. So those are the things that I surfaced then. But anything that we are struggling with where we would really benefit from external input, I think we can get external input from them.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much it for like a high level update.
All right, cool. I guess Steven doesn't have an update as every week. So do we have anything else to discuss before we go over the specs repo? If not, then so how should we do it? Should someone share their screen and then we
so I've been thinking about
screen,
I've been thinking about the fastest way to do this, and I think the fastest way is that if one of us, I'll do it. I will share my screen, but someone else should take notes on what we want to actually do to each issue, and then we'll do them after the meeting, so that we're not like waiting on people to type in the screencast. So if somebody else can take those detailed notes, then I can share my screen and we can get going.
Any volunteers?
Sorry, I'll take notes, but feel free to jump in the dock and help out as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, so all right, we have a lot of specs that have already been triaged into a tag called backlog. Rather than go through each one individually,
should we start with I would start with the PRs perhaps rather than the issues, because like the issues are like sometimes like 3 years old, so it's not like.
Well, yeah, I think that we can maybe just decide to close all of those. Like I don't see anything in the backlog that we shouldn't, that isn't just like a conversation that we need for posterity, that isn't going to have anything happen to it until we create a new issue about it. Does anybody disagree with that?
I haven't really looked into those, but looking into the into the names, it looks pretty much like it.
Yeah.
That IPLD version 2.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to even contextualize a lot of these ones that are pretty old. I think anything that like a stale bot would have already closed, we should just go through and close. So I think all of this stuff that was tagged as backlog, I think that we can close for now and just say like, I'll write up a note about it. So basically 49 and earlier in issues, we are closing. Let's just say that.
Yes.
And then, okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Now, okay, from there, do we want to start with issues or PRs?
I would go over the PRs first because like those are that's the more important thing, I guess. But yeah, feel free to disagree. So yeah.
Add go car implement. What even is this? What is go car? What is car?
That's the stuff I've been doing. So it's content archive format. But
okay.
But it's only in Go. There's no JavaScript one, and I use Zip instead because I decided that I didn't want to have to write a new format in JavaScript that wasn't compatible with anything. So
yeah, I think that we can close this.
But that exists and is used in Go, but I just don't think it's.
Do we still have this car.md file?
This thing is used in Filecoin, actually, I think.
Yeah, it's used for the Genesis block or something.
Yep. Yeah, there have been thoughts and like ideas to make it better. We also shouldn't call it car. It's like there are some design discussions around this. Not that one. That one I think is you could just I don't know, whatever. It's like there are a lot of design questions around like seekability and searchability and random access and all these things around cars, and also like easy implementation where like I think that version is the first version was literally just a tar file. The next version was slightly more special case and used protobufs, I think. But no, protobufs or CBOR, I can't remember. But yeah, it's got stuck in the like it's complicated and not that high priority held for a while.
I don't think it belongs on the. Oh, it must have been deleted.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, so if this file is gone, we don't even have a place to put this information right now. So
okay, just close it here.
Yeah. Okay. So in the notes, close that one. We may want to have a different file for car at some point once it's maybe renamed.
But is car an IPLD? Like, should it belong into the IPLD repository? Is also a question. I don't know.
It's supposed to be a
IPLD blogs.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a content addressable archive. That's the idea. So it's like,
those implementations exist and they're moderately well specified for what they are, but they also haven't been super ratified or like super. I don't think there's any reason to call them special or unique or the only one, right? So it seems like something we could put in a general bucket of links to related interesting projects you should check out maybe if you have time.
Yeah, eventually we wanted a spec on this. But then like again we had all these questions. We also had a question around the compression because actually we wanted to compress different blocks with different compression functions, and then you wanted to be able to like get rid of like C80s. Like there are all of these weird questions. You get this rabbit hole of insanity.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So it will be a new there will be a new PR or issue or whatever for whenever it comes up. Cool.
Okay. So this next one is a PR to update selector types, and
I think it also doesn't exist anymore. Like it doesn't seem to be like this is totally outdated. Like this can just be closed.
Fire. Don't even comment on it. Just kill it.
So this one we can close. And I'm going to assume that this feedback, to the extent that it was turned into anything actionable, made it into one of the other selector specs that we had open. So
yes.
There were a lot of selector specs open at one point in time, so I'm not surprised that one was hanging. So close 104, basically. That's what we should do. Basic spec for HAMT. This is the main HAMT spec, right? Still?
Yeah.
One that we're still working on? Okay.
Hang on.
Wait, hold on. I don't think that this is. No, this isn't. This is the Y. This is an older one.
This is the one that's used by Filecoin currently.
Yep. Wait, I'm not sure that that's true. I think there may actually be a delta between this spec and what is currently in that implementation. I'm not. I could be wrong, but I
then
think
I would
I
say
remember something.
Penguin trash.
Hmm. Okay, so we probably don't want to have two ham specs, and we have another spec PR open, but we want to make sure that this is entirely integrated into that, right?
There's also
I'm pretty sure that discussion got integrated.
But
Yeah.
isn't the new ham spec, doesn't that require like all the composite types and stuff like that?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. The new ham spec, I mean, like, there's an implementation on composites, but there's also like an implementation that Rod's doing just in Galactica Prime right now.
And the new spec is not that different to what this one is. They're very close. So it's,
yeah. Okay, so I think we can close this one.
I would add a point there because this is being used in practice, and so we can't just like say, oh, I'm not using it because like if I'm doing a mistake in it.
Is this something where we should actually have both of them and have some sort of a naming war, and then because I wonder what the words are.
Comment on this, saying like, are we going to switch or are we not going to switch?
That's a good point.
We should use one, but we should have, because this is a discussion point where like we have to at least like say, hey, Falcon team, we have this other thing over here. Here's the spec. Also, maybe discuss like converting the current implementation to this new thing. I don't know.
So I mean, so okay. First, just sort of point of process. So their process for deciding whether or not they'll switch to the other one is outside of like what we necessarily do with the spec. So they made it like they're already they're very active in the other spec right now. They are talking about switching to it. They may switch to it. They may not. I think they probably actually will. But
then I guess it comes down to naming.
Right. So, and I think the question is like, this either needs to go into some kind of historical design document. So we need to just like change where it's, I mean, I think the directory that's in right now doesn't even exist anymore. So that needs to get updated. And then we could probably still want to keep it around.
What we could do is so I did with when you come to the GraphSync PRs, I did basically archive them so we can basically talk about how to archive it when we saw the GraphSync PR, because you can see what I did with there basically. And then we can decide if we want to do the same thing.
Okay. So I think the real question is like, okay, if Filecoin did not move to the new standard, then we might just want to move this spec into their the implementation that they have, so that they have the spec there. If it literally is like an in-use thing that is only used by this one implementation, that would make sense to me. But if they do move, then all we want to do is like archive this the same way that Volker archived the other one, where we preserve a lot of the discussion.
Yeah, so either way, thumbs up to close and move to historical document format.
Yeah. Okay. Volker, your tool that pulls all this information out and does the whole conversation and everything, it can do that with closed PRs too, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we should close.
For that?
What?
There's a tool for that?
Yes,
Volker,
I basically created it today because I wanted to preserve the GraphSync stuff, and yeah.
Cool.
And
so
we will see it with the GraphSync PR. So I guess the action item for this would be we archive it, and the Filecoin team can take it and put it into.
So I think I think next step is to archive it into the design history somewhere, close this out, and then depending, like sometime in the future when they decide which ones that they're going to be on, we may end up pulling the spec out and maybe like sending it to their repo so that they have access to it in an easier format or something. Okay. All right. Cool. No, we don't have two ham specs open. That's great. GraphSync response metadata. Is this the one that you were talking about, Volker, or is this another one?
No, that's not the one.
Okay. Okay.
Not sure what to
Awesome.
do. I'm not entirely sure why graph sync stuff is in the IPLD specs repo, and I think it kind of should stop being.
It is.
Like-
So it doesn't belong in IPFS either. Like GraphSync is it's a IPLD syncing protocol. So like we don't really have.
Consider it firmly ecosystem rather than anywhere near core, though. So,
But it's still like it's.
doesn't GraphSync have another repo that's under the IPLD org? Is that where it's at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
So
just stay in that repo, and that's way more appropriate.
Is it IPLD spec?
I think there might be specs in that repo already too. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that PR is to a document that's moved into that repo already. Not 100% sure, but pretty.
Actually, no. So there. Oh wait, no. There's no repo. There's a GraphSync spec folder. So you've got IPLD specs, and there's specs block layer GraphSync.
Interesting. Okay.
I just feel like if you put this in IPFS and people are like, oh, it's IPFS specific, it's not. It's like it's a general purpose protocol for syncing things. Honestly, the bit swap stuff should be figured out.
Also, like just as a practical point, it's difficult to update selector stuff that is impacted by GraphSync stuff in tandem if they're in different repos. So it's just a little bit easier to work on.
I think they're pretty firmly separated, honestly. Like
they're separated, but
garbage.
Okay, so this doesn't merge cleanly anymore, probably because of the move. So hold on, let me look at the file here. This is the GraphSync file.
Should just ping Hannah to make sure that this is still relevant.
GraphSync. She probably already implemented it.
Well, maybe, or she may have decided it's not necessary. So that's the question. So,
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's comment to that effect. So in the notes, just say we need to ask Hannah if this is still a change that we need to make to the active spec, and if so, then we need to get it pointed at the right file because that stuff moved. This is spec for DAG PB.
That's one I would like to go over. Like I plan to go over, but I haven't had the time. So I would keep the DAG PB so that two open, I think, and my plan is to just go over it and see what we do with it. But it's a bigger task, I think.
Okay, so there's no conflicts currently, and I think currently we have like no DAG PB spec. So my preference is to merge this and then to have a discussion about further alterations to it.
But there's a second one, so you need to decide which one to merge.
They're conflicting DAG PB specs. Hold on. Oh shit, there is.
Yes, so therefore I plan to go over it and see what
Okay. All right. So Volker, can you take on an action item to actually rather than review these, could you just pull them into a single new spec that contains the important parts of both? And then we can close these.
Yes, so my plan was basically going over these and see what we do with it. Like I just I don't have a clue what, like I don't really know what they're about. So I will just go over them and see what we do with it. So just my action item is to make sure that something's happening.
Okay. All right, cool. That's just the action item is Volker will handle it. All right. So we have this cardinality spec. It needs to move into the schema layer. Does anybody have an objection to that?
Yes.
I would actually like to close that one. We've added other things to the concept stir. Or we should move them all at once again.
Okay, so wait, what is the issue? You want to move all concepts to somewhere?
So that this was I just wanted to try and make the hierarchy a bit more obvious here, and then but Eric wants to pull it back up again. I just would like these things to be located in a logical place for the user to find them, and Eric wants to put them in a concepts directory. I want there to not be a concepts directory because I'd like these things to be organized nicely because it's going to just explode. But it's not a strongly felt opinion, so I just want better organization. And we compacted the number of directories, and now in the last couple of months we've added 3 more directories, I think. So
yeah,
I think we could use another go at the organization again, because I share the explosion fear, but I also, like in this example, concretely, cardinality is something that I want to talk about at the data model layer for why the data model is the shape it is, and also at the schema.
Yeah, just close it. There's a conflict, so close it.
Okay, so I'm going to close that, but I do want to have a synchronous discussion right now about some of the organizational stuff, because this won't be the last spec regarding that. Can we move concepts into design so that it's design concepts next to?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. So action item, move concepts into design. It's very confusing to have a thing called schema layer and then a thing called schema.
Yeah,
So we had another name for schema layer. What was it? Advanced layer? I don't know.
Okay, so let's not tackle that one directly and zoom out to the general rethinks of org topic instead. We hate the layer cake, right? We've kind of come to the thought that one didn't stick real good, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of like random writings on this that have not landed anywhere organized, and so I want to apologize for that. But we had some conversations about this scattered around Slack and IRC and who knows where else. And I think one pattern that emerged is we have a bunch of stuff that has the shape of starts from node and still ends up being node. Like schemas are that. They start from data model nodes, and then they still present as nodes with more rules, but still like regular nodes with most of the same behaviors as data model, just different constraints around them. And advanced data layouts seem to also be node to node, just with more stuff in the middle. And then codecs are not that. Codecs are something the heck else to node, and vice versa. So this might provide some hints about the order in which we introduce some things.
And should we discuss the structure now? So because like I would rather think that if we finally have like all the old PRs closed and issues and whatever, basically we know what will be really in the repository, and then we can decide to look at everything and decide like where to put it. Because basically, the biggest problem is you need to do the reorganization with one PR because you break all the links. So you need to do it like, when everything is merged, basically.
I agree. That's why we're queuing them all up in a doc right now, right? But I'm remembering all of the different current threads and issues in the PRs, and a lot of them are naming and related. I know that so the layer cake is confusing in terms of teaching people IPLD, but it is still useful in terms of organizing a lot of our stuff. One thing that I'm noticing here, though, is that like for block layer and data model layer, it helps a lot with the organizing to have those in a directory. For everything above that, we effectively have just been putting it at the top level. So like schemas and selectors and like I think what we should do here is just take everything that's in the schema layer directory and move it up. So schemas obviously was already moved up, and this is just duplicate and confusing. And then data structures can just go to the top level. It is very like that is self-explanatory. And then and then none of these names are confusing, I think.
I mostly agree, except I'm betting Rod's going to say that's too many things at the top levels. It's the explosion. But so I agree otherwise. I wonder if maybe it would work out to take all of those things and put them in a directory of which I cannot imagine the name, but just everything that you should not read about until after you've finished reading about the data model. that directory. And like almost
right. I mean, again, like right now, the specs repo is where a lot of people come when they're learning IPLD. That is not where they should go once more people are learning IPLD. Like this is like reading all the specs is not like a great educational experience. Eventually, we want to have like better documentation that like can walk through these in a much better linear order, like starting with the data model, for instance.
I don't know if I rate the likelihood of us maintaining a soft docs and a specs repo at the same time very like plausibly.
Yeah, in the short term, that's obviously
I'd do
not
it.
happening.
I'd really that's a task I'd really like to tackle.
Okay, I did start a Git book repo called Book with like an introductory chapter in it that's half finished. So if anybody wants to continue to work on that, I will also work on it with you. Real quick though, in terms of directory proliferation, if you sum up everything that I just said, we're still down a directory from where we are now because this only has one directory in it that will go up. Schemas will get consolidated. We would get rid of the schema layer directory and concepts would move into design. So we're still down a directory, and I think it's clear. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
Put an action item down for me to do that. Okay. I think we're good there. All right. Okay. So.
Hang on. Sorry, I've got to capture. Okay. So, somebody's doing the notes. So we're going to collapse the schemas directory and move concepts to designers. There's the two high-level takeaways there.
Yeah, we're going to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Collapse schema layer directory. Yeah. Okay, so this PR was open just to talk about what it would take to get rid of / as a reserved key. It is not necessarily something that we should do. So I think that what we should do with this is the same thing that we've been doing with Fulker's other scripts, which is to create an archive file and put it in design history.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Now the big hash map spec. Okay. Rod, can we please merge this and then open new PRs against it? Handle the rest of the discussions.
Yes.
Can like I think that it's in a state that is good enough that like we should just use that as the baseline for continuing improvements. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah. Sure. There's one major outstanding item that I just haven't got to in code, which is removing the bit width property and inferring it from the size of the map byte array. So I'd like to do that and reflect it in the doc. But aside from that, I think it's pretty good.
Do you have any issue with doing that as a new PR against it after I click this merge button?
Do it. Click it.
Oh no, because there's also because just in the last couple of days, Eric's got one or two suggestions that I need to follow up on.
Yeah, but they're dumb and irrelevant. It's a typo.
Okay.
No, but I'm like just like it's open for so long, so just give Rod. Okay.
I just merged it. I heard Rod say okay for like 1 second, and that was the window in which I pushed that button. Okay. All right. Okay, this AMT spec. So is this? I know that you did some stuff to the ham spec, Rod, to sort of handle some of this.
This is a sparse array. I'm not going to handle the sparse array case. I don't particularly like it. So, but apparently Filecoin has a use for this. So Filecoin's going to need a sparse array, and this will serve that purpose. In theory, I think it's going to get unbalanced too quickly and easily, but it deserves to be specced out and actually experimented on. So,
okay. All right, interesting. So what do we think? So have they implemented this?
I don't believe there's any code for it, but I don't know what Filecoin's using right now for this use case.
Okay, so a couple things that need to happen. One is that this should move into design with a name that has -a since it's really early, and there's no implementation that we know of. So it just needs to like get pointed at a different directory. And then since it's experimental and there isn't implementation yet, we can just merge it once it's pointed at the right file.
So hang on, we need to put experimental at the top and then merge it.
Yeah. I mean, any spec, especially one that doesn't have implementation, should have that anyway. And then it should move into. We came up with a whole scheme for this, but yeah, it's like design/amt-a.md is what it should be called.
So experimentals are going into design history. Is that right?
Into design / yeah.
Okay, design /
Yeah, and all of them should be appended with - a letter so that alternatives can also be put in the directory.
Do we have documentation about the naming scheme? Because I saw the -a and was wondering what -a means. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we do. It's
Then
in the readme.
Okay, cool.
When I did a rename of composites, I added the docs for that. Okay, the vector spec. What's the status of the vector spec, Rod?
I think it's pretty close. I don't know I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any outstanding stuff, to be honest. To like, this could be merged unless anyone knows of any disagreement. But I mean, I like it and it works.
I'm not sure if you've addressed, I can't remember if you addressed all my comments, but I guess you did.
Oh, did you leave
I
comments?
think there's no. I mean, all of the discussions have been resolved except for one. So,
okay.
So I'm sure. So those were definitely at some point taken care of.
Okay. That one I will. Okay. Me to review and just get it merged.
Okay.
Because Rod, it's pretty much the same as what Jeremy has with Charray. Okay. So I don't think it's controversial.
Okay. Okay, cool. So you'll take an action item to handle this last comment here and then merge?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I think, Eric, your last comment here was that you don't really know what to do with this one.
Yeah, this was the one PR where linking is fun. I don't know. I really did not think that this one was going to be even the tiniest fraction as controversial as it was.
Okay.
And well.
So
I don't know. I still think it's probably actually reasonable that I'll just close this. This was way more controversial than expected, and I don't YOLO merge after that.
To capture the controversy, that it's really is it a conflict of perspectives about what IPLD can and should do, or was it something about the mechanics?
I think it's a couple different things, and I did try to combine several things in this issue, and I think that was, in retrospect, just dumb, and I shouldn't have done it. Like, one of the things that bugged me that I was trying to address with this one is that some of these statements were like incredibly specific implementation details to get hung up on in a document that I feel is otherwise almost entirely full of like North Star guiding vision statements. And I like the North Star guiding vision stuff, and that's what I'd like to focus this document on being. But I also combined that with a bunch of other things that were more in the details as well. And so that just made the whole thing much harder to reason about what the diff was trying to accomplish. So
your options are to scale it back or just close it.
And I think it's close it and then split it up into like 2 or 3. I'm thinking maybe add some header to that file, which describes the North Star like vision concept, and then do one that frankly, I'm still just going to flatly remove the thing about relative links where that's not happening. There's no way.
So I think this comment here, I think this comment here about move rather than remove is right. Like a lot of these, like a lot of this stuff is like we should keep capturing it somewhere, but probably just not this document.
Right. And that's what I want to do, is particularly with the like CID plus path linking. I think that one totally deserves additional thought and probably fits in somewhere, somewhen. Just this document, because it's too concrete for that North Star concept.
Just in terms of your process and what you would like to do, would you like to close this now and then follow up later, or would you like to leave it open until you have the follow up open to close it?
I don't care. I'll close on that right now. It's fine.
Okay. Close. Cool. Now back up to pull requests. Okay.
Yeah, those are the new PRs I just did an hour ago. So this is what it looks like. You can click on view file so that it's the not the source view, but the generated down view, perhaps. So if you click on the dot right next to viewed, and then
that's what
file,
you're gonna do. Okay.
then you
Okay.
So basically, this is just the spec as it was, and then scroll up again a bit. And then I say there's comments on this PR. So I say this was a PR. And then there's just basically a dump of all the comments that people did in nicely.
And the images are there. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. All right.
And it captures all the discussions.
Okay. I'm just going to merge this. This isn't controversial. This is a thing that happened. So I don't think that we are arguing that this happened. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one.
Yeah, it's just the other graphing spectrum, and just also with all the discussions and.
Yeah, I just want to view it real quick to make sure that there's no obvious kind of formatting issues. All right, cool. All right, that's great.
It feels so good having finally grabbed my graphing specs in the history directory.
Okay, issues. Okay, 55. Spec out DAG PB path resolution. What is this? Oh,
I guess
see.
Is it IPFS versus IPLD?
No. It's that like literally like the properties in a protobuf are not like we don't actually use those properties like in the pathing. In the pathing we like normalize out those links and just put them as their name. So that just needs to get added to the DAG PB spec, I think.
So basically the action item is to like also like when I go over the DAG PB stuff, I also look into that one. Okay.
Yeah. So action item is pull in issue 55 and then close it after you open that new one. Cool.
Yeah.
Primitives proposal. This is out of date. I mean, this all informed what went in, but this is like pretty old. Okay, so number 56, we should close. And then so for the next ones that I'm taking notes on, just write that we'll close them, and then I'll go in and add the comments later on why we're closing them. Structural type encoding information. What is this about? Hold on.
Oh, this was okay. So this was like in the before you all joined Protocol Labs. This was we had this idea like IPLD was something completely different. So I guess I would just close it. Like so, the L0 probably doesn't mean anything to any one of you.
Right. I feel like where important these notes have made their way into other documents. So okay, that one also needs to get closed out, I think.
Yeah, it just it's not
non-string keys. Eric, you have opinions about this. About non-string keys. I think that we've resolved non-string keys in a couple places, right? So
I mean,
so kinds don't have them, but advanced layouts do. Is that the resolution?
I don't know if I would actually firmly call this one resolved, in that definitely somebody is poking me in the shins like this very weekend, being like, why can't I X? And I'm like,
Well, I think it's somewhat agreed upon that map kind does not support this, and that we only support string keys and map kind, just to make them more implementable across different
what
formats.
have we currently spec'd out? So what does currently the map kind say in our spec?
I think it does say that.
I think it does say that. I don't know if we have enough documentation of why we are adamant about that, because and this is one of those situations where we'll need it because people will keep asking about this one.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess there's an action item that we need to write that up in order to close this out. And so just looking at what we have today, I think that as far as implementations go, map kind only supports string. So if it's not in the spec, then it needs to be in the spec, but I think it is.
It isn't in the spec.
It is. Okay, well, we need to put that in spec. Then in advanced layouts, if I'm recalling correctly, you do have to say what type the keys are when you put them into an advanced layout struct, right?
I mean, if you're just thinking of schemas in general, whenever you're doing lists or maps, you usually do them typed. So like there's a key type and a value type.
Right.
The strength that I'm operating with the whole time in schema design is that if that, you can actually have different kinds of, let me try not to get tongue-tied here. You can use any type you want as the map key type, and it can actually be almost any kind you want at the type level, as long as the representation kind is string.
Yeah.
How does that work in practice?
Right, good question. So like, let's say you have a struct and it has two fields, X and Y, and you want to use that as a map key. If the struct representation is string join, then you can do it, because that struct will get serialized as like the value of X colon the value of Y.
Oh, okay.
String, it's unambiguous. We would encode that in JSON and anything else, and we can go to space.
Okay, so you can't just take an arbitrary type and use it as a key. You actually have to have some way for it to turn into a string representation.
Yep. And because that some way is defined in terms of the representation system in the schemas, it's a thing that we can enumerate, we have control of, and we can do good code gen about it, make it be fast and not suck.
Okay, so that also needs to be documented.
And is there then any way, like if someone would want to have a map with a non-string key in IPLD somehow? So is there any way of doing it? Like it doesn't have to be easy, but like what? Yeah.
I mean, if you mean
here's a concrete example. I was saying in that in the amped spec discussion that I think that a better way to handle sparse arrays in the future would be to use ordered maps, and then use the integer keys on ordered maps, so that then when we have an ordered map data structure, then it will be better at balancing than an AMT would for arbitrary sparse arrays. So yeah, I mean, there's non-string key for a map.
In that it's an integer rather than
Yeah. And it would behave like a list. It's just very sparse, so you wouldn't iterate over it in quite the same way.
Would then perhaps be would then whatever you implement, like, so let's say you want to implement map with non-string keys, would it be that it doesn't map to the data model, to a kind, but of course you could still implement it as an advanced layout? No, not as an advanced layout, as what we call composite. So I don't want to open this discussion again, but so you could of course have, like in your own code, you could specify something, and you can also define a schema for it, but it won't map to a map kind.
Okay, so Rod, you'll probably now understand my issues around this topic. So if I try to figure out how to implement non-string keys in the Go stuff, none of the existing accessor methods that I have around maps work. And if we try to implement sort of a union type in Go, that would be either string or integer, and use it for these accessor methods as their parameter, or for the iterators, or anywhere else where this touches. We don't have zero cost union abstractions in Go. It's not Rust. Go actually sucks. I don't know any nice way to say it. There's no way to do this without making like boxing type allocations as we're used to from like the bad old days of the JVM version on the Google. We still have that problem in Go. So this makes it really, really tricky, because if we go all in on that abstraction so that we can whimsically use string or int, it's going to have like really fantastically awful performance penalties to something very, very core in our system, for a feature that I feel like the rate of use is going to be incredibly, incredibly rare.
Okay, so should we perhaps say, so we define that map kinds have only strings, and we specify it, and then we can close this issue. And in the future, at one point, if we need it for whatever reason, then we will see how it fits in, and how non-string keys fit in, and if we really need them, or
we should have a design document around non-string keys, basically, and it should say everything that we just talked about. I think it's just like, it's relatively easy to imagine how to implement this pretty automatically with any string, even if it's like in this schema like representation system, right? But the moment that you get into another type, you're looking at a custom comparator for the most part, except for like, well, integers, it's obvious, but like you're going to need a custom comparator for pretty much any other type, and those vary wildly between different programming languages and formats. So it's just really hard to figure out how you would go about doing that. So you're off in like advanced layout composite land the moment that you want to do this. So it's not that we won't ever support something like this in the future. It's that like that's the layer that it's going to have to live at, and we aren't currently working on doing that. So.
Yeah, it just generally gets very deep very fast, like surprisingly so.
Yes,
Okay.
so basically you can't really do so the IPLD data model, the idea is that you can do pretty general things like on every implementation, but if you go into non-string keys, you end up with, it's so specialized that you probably don't can use easily other implementations because it's so application specific. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, So the
Jason.
next issue looks like it's basically the same thing. So for the action item for 59, we should close it out on the same.
Michael, can you share your screen again, because I can't see it anymore?
Oh, it went out? Oh, that sucks. Hold on. I thought that. Oh, you know what? As soon as the screen goes to sleep for like a second, it loses it, I think, is what happened. So, okay, so 59 is document restrictions on map keys. Cool.
But isn't then, like, could we then just close the other issue and keep the documenting one open? Basically referring from the one issue, referring it to the we should document it.
My video, Caleb, you're on video.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's fine. However we want to handle it.
So which number was like non-string keys is?
Yeah. So we should close 58 pointing at 59, and then we should close 59 by documenting that. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is support existing MIME types. Yeah, I think that we can basically close this. This was a discussion basically about how to best do this. But it doesn't really belong here. It basically belongs in some of the next best discussions. So I'm just gonna close this now. I don't feel like it's actually an IPLD level thing to worry about. Okay, down to one page. Sweet. Spec refining, specify valid.
Hang on, tactical point. I dropped my tab open to the notes page. Rod, are you still being diligent?
Yes.
Okay. You're...
And I think Valkyrie will make.
Yeah, I hear both of you typing sometimes, so I assume so. Unless you're just chatting on ISD with somebody random. So okay, spec refining, specify valid Merkle path segments and encoding. It's a great idea, Eric.
Oh,
wow. Okay, so we need a path spec. Like we've tried to do this a few times and it has gone nowhere.
yeah.
How do we think that we're going to resolve this given the history?
This seems like a thing where this issue body, I would flip it over to a design history document now. It's okay. Just like a huge collection of links to existing stuff.
Okay.
Which is good, you know. And after that, I don't know. I think in this issue, when I first wrote it, this one's from like last fall or summer even, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out character encoding stuff. And since then, I've tried to talk about this problem with a couple of different people, like Jan or something, and someone like not physically body slammed me, but like the argumentative equivalent of it, and said, why? Like just literally, why character encoding? Why not just shut up and treat it like bytes, because you cannot win character encoding? And I was unable to answer that. And that's
yeah. Well, I mean, one reason is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but path segments, when they're broken into a selector, are encoded as strings in that object representation, aren't they?
Yeah, but
so
you know,
so in those segments, at least, we need to worry about it. I mean, maybe that just belongs in the selector spec for how it encodes those.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we definitely need in the path spec is to center it around being a list of segments. And then after that, my modern take on it would be, we should just say a segment is a series of bytes. It should be UTF-8. If not, God help you, but fine.
Okay, yeah. So, all right, coming back to this, we'll close this by turning it into a design history doc. I think that like on the to-do list somewhere is a path spec doc, but it's more perilous than I think anyone wants to admit that it is. It's not clear who the audience is and who implements the path spec. Like that's the problem that I have with it. And every time that I sit down to work on it, that's the issue. Because like if you're thinking about like URL specs, the person who gives you the URL is like a user who hands you a string. And the rules are about encoding that into things that don't lose a lot of precision. This, like when we're talking about it, it's very unclear, like who would be responsible for encoding these and at what time. And we don't have like, we're going to end up with a lot of double encoding if we don't define that before we write the spec. So
we need a path data model then.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. It's funny because we've been doing the selectors that like ostensibly requires this. Like, yeah, we've been doing a bunch of work and intuiting what paths should do. I think that the more that we do that, the more that we start to define where this might exist. And so it's not as bad as it seems to not have a path spec yet, because I think that we actually are learning where this goes the longer that we live with what people do intuitively. I think
about data model is like, yeah, actually that's basically totally apt. We should make a path spec that has a very pure definition, and then in order to address things like how should this relate to URLs, we define mapping starting from the pure like ground that we established first. It's much more doable.
Huh. This issue is fascinating because it's basically the conversation we're having now about type information.
Yeah.
I like that top one particularly because there's this argument about context. With some people saying that a data is never context free, but you know, actually really interesting discussion. Are we aiming for context free data or data that is always tied to some context? Like that seems to be a hinge for a lot of our disagreements about some of this type stuff.
Yeah. So this should probably go in design history then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember this issue, there's a couple of other comments and then it just stops and it's...
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I really like that last guy's comment. That series of videos he links to is dank. It's very...
Awesome. Okay. Sounds good. Why does this have... Okay, cool. Let's go to IPLD and compression. Woohoo! Yeah. Oh, whoops. This is a good one. I think at this point we need to archive this somewhere, and then I need to take the action item on sort of compression next steps. I think so. Actually, let me get people's bearings on this real quick. At this point, do you feel like this just belongs in the transport layer, and then it's really not our problem? Or is this something that we need to consider? Okay. Oh,
so,
okay.
just a bit of a background, because like also as someone on the issue jumping in is Rüdiger, you might remember from the IPFS camp, or the data terror Nemo, who does like factory things with IPFS and IPLD. And there they basically have just small events and send them over to like all over the place. And they would really benefit from special compression. So they basically know they, for example, only send certain values all the time. So they can use just a existing dictionary and compress it very well, which you can't do on the transport layer, because the transport layer doesn't have the knowledge the application has. So therefore, they really would want to compress it within IPLD.
So I suggested this in Berlin, but I think that kind of specialized use case could be handled with advanced layouts, just like encryption. You could build a advanced layout that unpacked itself to a decompressed block.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. So it's not something that would be like a core spec or something of IPLD. It would be an application.
So this is where our layer model starts to break down a little bit, though, and how we built a lot of the abstractions, to be honest, because this doesn't work all that well without varying codecs quite a bit and not just, treating things as somewhat codec agnostic and just supporting a data model. Because the blocks that you're creating are probably just like raw blocks in the linkage, but then are semantically interpreted some other way by the composite engine.
I mean, that seems like something you could do. I still don't know about should. Like, I don't see why you couldn't take the pre-selected dictionary and still do that as a transport layer thing.
Because maybe you don't control the transport layer.
It maybe it depends.
And perhaps you don't want to do like you transport several things over the transport layer and only want to have certain things.
But the point of the discussion, though, is that maybe this is not our problem right now. Like, this is an interesting thing. Like, in a similar way to encryption is, we don't need this right now. But we want to make space that if somebody wanted to do it, then they could come along and contribute something that would do this.
Okay, so we'll design doc this one as well, I guess, and then.
Yes, so we archive this one, and I can also I will reach out to Rüdiger to see if perhaps he even wants to write some exploration document or something.
It'd be good to have more discussion about actual use cases.
Okay. Do we still not explain what a DAG is in the README?
Probably not.
Okay. We actually have a good explainer in Proto School somewhere, so we can link to that. I'll take this one on, and yeah. Okay. So in the notes, say Michael will close this one out with an update.
I actually wasn't aware that I opened so many issues on the repository.
Okay, this one is actively being worked on by you, right, Volker? I'll link this one.
Yes, actively, as in if I finally find time for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's like it's in your queue of current work.
Yes. Oh, that's my favorite one.
I think we can close this.
Well, we so just to be quick, I would prefer, so if we move things around and already renaming things, I would be really happy to have lowercase file names. But
I think we did that already, didn't we? I think everything is
Foundation is still uppercase.
Okay, well, I'm closing it, and then we will fix any remaining ones. I promise.
Yeah. Fine.
Where were we? Links v2. Okay. This goes back to that discussion that we were just having about links and needing a bigger link spec. So I think maybe we actually leave this open until we have that link document.
Yeah, I think we're getting to the shallower end now, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Actually be not disconcerting.
So for that links document that needs to be created, should we just create a new issue that says we need to create a links spec and then point all of these at them and close them?
So personally, issues don't map onto my priority matrix at all. But if you want to.
Okay, well, fuck it. We'll just leave this one open. It's fine. We can have some open issues. Slice paths. This belongs in the path spec that needs to get written. So I guess that also stays open until that gets written. Perhaps thinking this can definitely get closed out. This is an action item issue from January. Selector exploration. This needs to get turned into a design history doc. 94 needs to go into design history.
I should unmute. Yeah, so this was into this site history. It's just there for, archiving purpose.
I'm going to leave this open because this still needs to happen, and the people that need to know about it are there, except for maybe James. But I don't want to put that on his queue list yet until he writes a spec. Application protocol with batching on top of the
And this can also go into the exploration thing. Yeah, it was also only posted.
You've just jumped a bit too far.
Sorry.
The IPLD IETF name one. What's the
that one needs to stay open. It needs to stay open. Like it still needs to happen. The people that are on it are the right people. I might add James to it later, but that doesn't need to get documented really. I'll handle that once the new spec is up.
Okay, and then we're on 101. 101.
101 needs to go into design history. 101 needs to go into design history. That's the resolution there.
I'm putting Volker. I'm putting your name against these design history archiving things because is that right? Because you've got
yes, yeah. I will do the archiving stuff because I have the script and then yeah.
Cool. No wait, shit. Go back. More IANA registrations. This is a different one though. This is the MIME type. I'm gonna leave that for now. That one's fine there. We do need to have that discussion, but I don't feel confident having it yet. Because I don't think that the IANA is gonna let us just say application/IPLD belongs to us. Actually, could we? So, Plus does just get assigned. It's usually used for like encodings and stuff like that. Is that correct? Or is every single one of those registered? I don't know. Anyway, I have questions there. In the notes, say that Michael needs to add some comments and questions to number 102. Okay. Naming things with selectors spec consistently. Did this get handled? This is kind of old. Volker, did this happen?
I think this one can be closed because the selectors are a completely different thing now. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Recursive selector types. This one too?
What was this about? Yeah, just close. Wait, yeah, just what was this about? But I guess we've addressed it. Yeah, just close it. Yeah. And if we haven't, it wasn't important.
Nested recursive traversal. Same?
Yeah, I close it.
I hope we wouldn't want this. Yeah, same. But we did.
Add a sequential selector. This all happened. Okay.
It's interesting to see like how much time I spend on the specs repo without remembering it. Like this is where all my work has gone. Like I was wondering what did I do, but it's all in this repository.
I think this is. I think.
I don't know if there was that one.
Hold on. I wrote this spec, but it was a while ago, so I've forgotten it. Nope, we didn't write it yet. Okay. All right, I need to assign that one to me.
Assign it to you, Michael, was it?
Yeah.
I feel like a very holistic meta thing that I'm learning from this is we need to proceed directly to PRs when we have these things and not do issues, because if we write the issue first, we never do the frickin' PR.
Yeah, a lot of this like is before we actually had that design history stuff, so we just didn't have that outlet. This should get rolled into design history. Yeah, this is like a big long discussion about. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that needs to get rolled into design history. That was, what was that? That was number 118.
Should like as this one is one that Rod did. Do you want to archive that one like in a like proper way, or should I just grab it and archive it somehow and
just do it how you're doing the other ones?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I do have some questions how much we want to just like bulk dump things out of GitHub into text versus like have a short file that tries to re-summarize and just links to the GitHub content.
I mean, Volker, if you're doing all these with a script, do you just want to have one PR that has like, you know, fixes all of the issues that it rolls in?
I could like whatever like yeah. So, but I was thinking about if we should perhaps like write like at least at the top like a summary and then archiving like perhaps still archiving the comments, because like sometimes like I think like especially like the PR before from Rod had a huge discussion. Also the graphs and stuff, really the discussion is also interesting. It's not about like nitpicking about things, but like interesting. So I might write some short summary, but then they would be individual PRs because it will also take some time. So it would probably then just like
don't do too much work. I think if you make too much work, you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah. I think like the point here is to kind of clear some of this out, so that the issues in PRs are a more accurate reflection of what we're talking about now. And I mean, we've had that discussion. It's been sitting there forever. It can sit in a markdown file instead, and we don't really need to put like a lot of extra stuff around it. High-level design rules from Eric. What do you think about this one?
Man, you know, I think I was asking for this foundations document, so close it or make a comment about, maybe put a comment on the end about, let's say that this is the foundations document now, and then I'll close it when I make a new header for that document that says we are the North Star.
Okay. Handled.
Just like what I will do, I will just dump the stuff into the history, and then if someone wants to write a summary, you can always do a PR on it.
Yep.
It sounds like a good way.
Oh, fuck this.
Ooh, that's a good one.
This requires like an ever expanding set to be held by every session. Yeah, I mean, this needs to go into design history.
Yeah, that's also design history,
for sure.
Did we figure out if there is another GraphSync repo and if it has some of its own specs in it?
It's not. It's just a directory in the specs repo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This definitely goes in design history.
I still feel like this stuff, we still need to resolve it all, but yeah, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere in that discussion.
Yeah.
I would like to flip that one into a file and then leave it there, and I actually want to rewrite. Like, this is a perfect example of one of those ones where I want to park the old one and then write another one completely scratch clean. I'm like, maybe I'll shadow the old one, but
you want this one archived?
Yeah. I think we've learned a few things, and I'd like to write something like that issue again, but with like a couple more headings that disambiguate a couple more things. And like,
I think we've also surfaced a lot of new things that we want to tackle with advanced layouts that's not even in there that we probably want that document as well. Like we're just talking about the non-string key stuff. Right? Okay.
I think this was Q&A, and we can close it and say question answered. Ciao.
Asked and answered. There we go. Reconciling terminology. Yeah, this is like an issue. Like I don't think that the resolution to this would be that we all agree what the words mean and have the same idea, which we don't have. But I do think that we are closer than we were. But this should probably go into a design doc actually somewhere.
So here's the thing with this, with archiving this though, is that this is an outstanding thing that we are currently hashing out between us. But for others coming along to this discussion, if we archive this, then it's like, well, it's not resolved. It's over there, but this thing's still active. It's kind of nice to have this thing as flagged as an active thing that we're working on.
I
do that.
Oh, sorry.
I think it would be if reading this and not knowing a lot about the project gave you a good indicator of what these things meant. And I don't know that it does that. I haven't read it that way before.
But then we have nothing if we close this way out. Nothing to flag that there, because you come along and you'll see us all using different words and talking slightly differently about the same thing.
Well, frankly, like no new work is really going into composites this quarter. So like we don't really need, I don't think that we need to worry that much about people needing to know what composites are, given that it's sort of on pause while other stuff finishes. We're actively working on advanced layouts, and this is not the right place to figure out what that means, I don't think. Nor is, and multi-block collections like have a better document to explain that we don't do.
But I think it shouldn't be archived. So if we close it, it shouldn't be archived, because like it's not like, so for me the archive is about things that basically people spend a lot of time thinking about things, and we decided not to pursue them for now, and we might revive them in the past. This one's like an ongoing discussion, and it's not like it's a proposal or something. It's just like we're discussing things and don't agree.
Yeah. And I think that like we got closer, but we're not there. But we don't need to get there right now. We can reopen this and recontextualize it in the future in order to achieve that. So it's closed. Good call, Volker. I'm thinking.
Like, do others agree? Because it doesn't seem so.
I mean,
so there was issue number 140, which was that question that person showed up with and had questions about the schemas.
Yep.
And just pointing to stuff that's active is really hard, because the last comment is mine in there, and I was trying to link some active things that are ongoing. But while doing that, it made me realize that we've got so many things in the air that are not very visible, and we don't have ways of saying these are the things that we are currently trying to grapple with. And what we're doing right now is archiving a lot of that stuff, just packing it away, but it doesn't actually make it go away. It's still there. And then when somebody shows up with questions, oh no, we're discussing that. But how do they know? How would they know without asking us? And then how can we describe it without writing it all out from scratch?
I mean, one of the problems with all these just open documents, though, is that like the context from one just flows into the next one naturally, because it's all the same people commenting in it. So none of them make very good point, like particular places for you to get that information either, right? And to some extent, like I would actually appreciate an issue just saying like, I don't know anything about this. This is like, this is my question. And like, this is my use case. Like, that's actually much more useful to our project right now than them trying to comment in a document and being very confused about the state of all this stuff. Right?
No, I get that. I'm just thinking about flagging things that are currently in the air, and we're currently unflagging them by closing all the issues, and we have no way of indicating, yep, that's something that's over here that we're eating away at.
So maybe this is kind of a vanguard opinion, but this is why I'm advocating so much for just using plain old dates in the file names and the stuff that we do put in that exploration and history area. Because it's very difficult for any human to like always reliably preemptive strike style maintain indexes about what is and is not definitely happening right now. But the date is a pretty good proxy for that, actually, and it's much easier to maintain that.
So the date that something was last modified is visible right next to it in GitHub, at least. So I'm not worried about, and like that's more representative than the date that it was created. Is the last date that somebody modified it.
I wouldn't agree. Nah, I wouldn't agree, because like it could be just like endless discussions for years, and it's
Right.
like
No, so hold on. So sorry. There's I think we're talking about two different kinds of documents. So in design history, dates are fine, because those don't actually even get modified. But in the like design / experimental feature -A that we're doing, those actually do get updated when people are actively working on them.
Well, see, I think having those non-dated things is actually dubious in the first place, but that's my vanguard opinion about this.
Okay, so this one, this is open. This actually needs to happen. So this was only logged like 40.
Before you move on from that, I just want to tangent here for a second.
There's nowhere to move to, so we're on to the next. Yeah.
No, that just show what you're showing there on your screen. Back to another discussion we were having about map key kinds.
Mm-hmm.
The schemas allows for alternative key types, and you can see it there in the advanced layout thing, where the curly braces and the string to string thing. If we're saying that maps can only have string keys, then maybe schemas shouldn't allow for a flexible key type.
No. Well, that's the thing that Eric was just talking about, where if you have a string representation of that, then you can. So if your type, so you can use another type in there that has a string representation, like a join or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So it does accept other types. They just have to be coercible into strings, essentially.
So we should document that then.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that should get documented when this change happens as well, I think. Or wait, no, those aren't even connected. That can happen completely separately. I don't know why I connected them.
So this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Goes first.
So Eric and Michael, you feel pretty strongly that this is the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't see since you're literally saying the same thing twice, I don't see why, and you're not allowed to do them separately. I don't see the point why. And if we want to open up the possibility of being able to use an advanced type as two different types, then this would be the easiest way to do it.
Okay, first of all, tactical point. We've gotten through our whole backlog. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of to-do items in there for us to go and clean up. But
Yeah. Do we want to dig any further tonight, or should we like spend some? Holy crap, that's a to-do list. I just looked at my other screen. Yeah.
I just really quick about, because like I'm still concerned about the previous issue that we just closed, because like the whole like naming composites whatever discussion, because the problem is I know that like tomorrow Michael will talk about composites again and everyone will be confused again. So like I think it's still an open issue. So
so first of all, so
there's still a thing that you call composites, right?
But since we're not working on composites this quarter, I probably won't say composites tomorrow.
The problem with saying that, though, is that I don't think we're even quite sure what that means, what we're not working on.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to go and write a spec for Unisys v2 in IPLD schema. Then I'm going to have to write some tools to turn that IPLD schema into an API. And then I'll also probably end up writing some API for defining an advanced layout in IPLD schemas. And that will give us a much more concrete thing to look at and say, like, okay, here is like an advanced layout implementation in JavaScript, and here is a composite implementation in JavaScript. What is the difference between these two things? And we can have a much more informed discussion from that point on. And it's not important for us to resolve this thread until, before that work is done. So we can just kind of defer it, and then we'll have a better thing to talk about and more knowledge in general. And I think I'll even have much better language to describe the difference between them.
Okay.
Can you then post a comment on the closed issue saying this so that it's clear? You should have closed because of, yeah, okay.
Okay, put it in the notes and yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay. Cool. All right. Good work, everybody. Especially all the work that everybody just signed up to do.
But just for the time frame, I think it's not urgent to do this because this will take a while, and I have a conference upcoming, and so I just don't want to spend that much time on archiving things.
Yeah.
I mean, I will certainly do it. It's not like I won't do it for another 10 months, but just it won't happen tomorrow, basically.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll probably knock your mind tomorrow, just because if I don't, I'll never do them. Yeah, it's whatever timeline is fine. These have been here for a long time. They can sit for another few weeks. So. Cool. Except Rod. Rod, you have to close out that next issue soon. That PR has been open too long. Also, just the PRs in general, I think we can get very close to kind of inbox zero on the PRs. The issues are a bit harder. Cool. Okay.
So good if we reach inbox zero on this repo. I would just feel amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that'll be great. Yeah, and then from there, I think that one thing that I'm getting from this conversation is that we don't have a very clear separation between what is being used for external messaging versus internal collaboration between people that are really active, because we're just pointing everybody at the specs repo right now because there's nothing else. Yeah. So I may get a little bit more aggressive about getting some more stuff into that book repo, and then at least using that book repo as a place to log issues for things that we want to write better documentation for external consumers about. And even just to signal when we're ready to write something up for external consumption, rather than just we're done iterating on it internally.
Yeah, there is a book repo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I get notified when new repos are created.
Oh yeah, because you're I think only is there no way to subscribe to that if you're not an owner?
Maybe.
I also haven't heard of it before, so I also didn't get any notifications. So did you add the IPLD team through this repository?
So is there a way to have repos automatically get a group added to them somewhere? Is that a thing?
Well, I think you have to add the group manually, I guess.
Okay.
I'm just asking if we're done because I'm running out of battery, so I either need to get power or I have 13 minutes to go and I'm streaming. So
we're done. It's been an hour and a half. Let's go. Let's call it. This is great, everybody. Thank you for your time. We made a lot of progress. This is awesome.
All right.
Talk again soon. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.